Hello, everyone. Good morning and good evening, wherever you are. My name is Nadeem Zahid. I'm the CEO of New York's Networks in the US. With me here is Matthias Lichtenaka. I hope, Matthias, I said your name right. I'm always very nervous saying that.
It's almost close. Lichtnecker, just like Schwarzenegger, only a little bit brighter.
Okay, great. So let me introduce uh, ourselves. And somehow I have lost the control here. Matthias, can you forward the slide for me?
It's gone for me as well. Interesting.
Okay, why don't we go here actually? So,
Yeah.
let me go back to slide 1 here, a little bit of hiccup. So meanwhile, let me introduce ourselves. So Matthias and I go a long way back actually. So my background is going here. So I have a background with companies such as, Cisco, Brocade, Juniper, Extreme, Live Action, and cPacket. So mostly, if you can see, networking industry, network visibility space, and that is exactly our topic today. And Matthias, as you can see, has extensive background with companies such as IP Fabric, A10, Live Action, etc. So he also comes with a very strong background with a network, visibility, observability, and security space. So both of us actually line very well in the realm of network observability and space, and both IT and OT side. So I think we are. I hope that we are well suited to give you a good perspective on the topic that's today. So without delay, let me dive into a little bit of the house cleaning stuff here. So housekeeping stuff. So agenda and flow today is IT and OT trends, walking you through some of the leading trends at the high level in 2026. Um, um, we'll have a little bit of Q&A window at the end, and then some of the next steps for you guys. So in today's webinar, we're going to give a prize as well, and that's a mini drone. For anybody to win the prize, you must stay throughout the webinar till the end. That is a condition, must be from the relevant industry related to the topic, and in order to reach out to you, must have a valid work email or phone number or contact with us. Simple as that. So having said that, let's start with this beautiful picture. You're on top of the mountain here, looking at 2026 ahead of you. It's still January, so the idea here is to give you a really big picture view of things, right? So so your CISOs and CIs have obviously strategic objectives, and if you're network and security architect, see there are quite a few on this webinar. You want to make sure that you are aligned with your strategic objectives, with your leadership. You know what is happening in your industry, what changes are coming. For example, people are nervous, about AI and all that stuff that's going to take away our jobs. So, what is all this happening around us, right? So how do we align what we do in our daily roles with those major trends? Obviously, we can't boil down the ocean here and talk about every possible trend. So we have picked some selective trends, right? And that's where these trends come in. So the trends we're going to talk about today include AI-driven security and observability, evolution of observability as a platform in the IT and OT industry, unification and consolidation of IT and OT, OT resilience, zero trust, which is very hot, and then compliance, some of the compliance and regulations that are in place or are coming down the road, and cybersecurity skills that they pertain to all of us, who want to basically continue to survive in this space. So I think those are some of the well-aligned trends that we're going to talk about today. So having said that, let me kick off with trend number 1, which is AI-driven security and observability. I thought I'll kick off with the most, favorite or whatever, the most interesting trend first, right? So everybody's talking about AI, right? And Matthias has an opinion about the word AI driven or not. He is going to obviously chime in later on. But the trend basically pertains to at least 3 subcomponents, right? It's basically about AI-centric cyber defense. It's about AI-driven observability and risk management, right? So there are three, so it's a kind of a triangle. So when we talk about, defense, as believe it or not, the hackers are always 2 steps ahead, and they are usually, smart. So, and persistent, right? So AI, like any technology, hackers are usually the first one to adopt it and use to their advantage. So that puts defense, to kind of race and be ready to use the similar technologies to counter that. So AI security operations basically is shifting from now reactive to more augmentic workflows, right? And using AI tools to triage alerts, correlation signals, and recommended automatic responses. So you're delegating responsibility to AI to how to not only detect and figure out what kind of alerts are coming in and at much faster rate, because if they are using AI, that they can attack you at much faster rate and much more intelligently, than how you're going to basically not only support, but giving your a little bit of decision making to AI to respond and contain the attack as well before it notifies you, and you as a human, supervising that response, right? So that trend you're going to see increasing, um, where AI becomes kind of your wingman, right? Um, so second one is observability. Observability, few years back, people did not even know this word. Now everywhere, and it's evolving. It's a very relevant word we are going to talk about today in our webinar. So observability, having a holistic view of things, is becoming very important. And that integrated with AI is creating a very, very interesting nexus. It's about having more, from prescriptive to predictive insights, and forecasting outages and anomalies in next couple of hours, in next week, or whatever period, and giving a heads up. You're gonna basically lose that productivity. And then there comes to be the risk management. So how organizations are formally assessing AI security risks from obviously attackers, from hostile nations or hostile forces, is important in terms of deployment, increasing focus on AI governance, misuse prevention, and insider stuff, and all that, and monitoring basically based on AI. So basically, the key takeaway from this trend is that AI is simultaneously a tool for stronger security and observability, if you are a good guy, and at the same time a threat vector that needs governance and supervision, right? So this just I wish our animations could work here, which somehow didn't in this tool. But basically, if you can visualize that spinning tool on the left, which is AI ops, AI ops is a word that's coming out. AI centric, operations, IT operations is a buzzword that's not even a buzzword, it's a reality now. Has 2 segments: the AI ops platforms and services. And we as network engineers, at security architects or network architects, or cloud operations or site reliability engineers, generally mostly care about the platform side, because those are the tools you're going to use. You can see basically it's all about assuring business continuity, whether it's security delivery angle, it's application observability across this hybrid environment that involves critical infrastructure, which is heavily OT centric, data center, high performance computing, and the hybrid cloud environment. AIOps you're going to see everywhere in the coming years. And this just shows you the journey, kind of how AI-centric security and observability has been moving over the last kind of couple of years. Obviously, we are talking about not the hindsight, but the picture forward. So you're going to see in 2026, about 45% of Fortune 500 companies board will now have a special position created, a hybrid position called Chief AI Security Officer, right? Or it's going to become part of the CISOs. So CISOs are managing now not only just digital transformation security with the CIO, but also the AI transformation. So it's a major initiative across many companies. And that is going to become, if you're right now on this webinar and you're a VP or director of security, or you're a CISO, that is something that is, if not already becoming, is going to become part of your role in 2026 and beyond, right? And then there's some other statistics. Basically, you're going to see, that major global powers will call for cybersecurity conferences, conventions, and AI is going to become a key component to be discussed along with the cybersecurity space. Matthias, you have to say anything about this, or before I hand off to you for number 2?
What I see in the real world is that it's rather more AI supported as yet. It's not yet AI driven, which in my opinion is a good thing, but it's rather more AI supported. But the industry calls it what they think it shall be. So, but now we come to a very interesting trend, how observability platforms are evolving and how mature organizations have become in their implementation. In 2026, observability is not any longer viewed as optional, and budgets are being protected because observability is now seen as core infrastructure, directly tied to uptime, customer experience, and revenue protection. But don't you think it is an unlimited spend category? The difference today is cost discipline. Because cool tools get consolidated, organizations are rationalizing their monitoring or observability stacks, and platforms are nowadays expected to scale efficiently while aligning with security, compliance, and performance needs. So you wouldn't keep your legacy tool because of loyalty reasons when the costs outweigh measurable outcomes. There is also a shift from raw monitoring to experience intelligence. You want to have fewer signals with higher context. You want to combine the infrastructure data with the user experience, the AI-driven or AI-supported analysis with business KPIs in one singular view. So what I see is a trend to CXO dashboards, how I like to call it, where everyone can have his AI agent combine his individual required metrics. So from a maturity level perspective, enterprises typically advance through 4 stages, prioritizing cost control and business alignment in this year. Stage 1 would be basic monitoring. You have your cloud monitoring setup in AWS, you have your cloud monitoring setup in Azure, you have your WAN monitoring based on NetFlow, you have your LAN monitoring based on SNMP, you have application performance. But when an incident happens, your best people have to stop the blame game, bring all this information together, because an underlying perspective is still, overall silos is still missing, and try to make sense out of it. So with other words, it's manual troubleshooting. Stage 2 would already be a little bit more structured. You have your logs, your metrics, everything aggregated in one view. You have your service level objectives for reliability setup. These are measurable targets for service performance, availability, latency, to balance the user expectations with the business needs. They would formalize how reliable is reliable enough. In stage 3 already, things are finally starting to become real observability. We have AI pattern recognition for detecting symptoms the human eye can't see, which leads to automated root cause detection. If we have a grip on the now, we can look into the future with predictive analysis. For remediation, we receive suggestions, but it's not yet the self-healing behavior. Obviously, a lot of people already advertising. That would come in stage 4 with proactive observability and automated root cause analysis. This is also, I believe, the turning point when we let AI decide to make changes in the config. But even more interesting is a new common language is evolving for an integration to the business world. It's no longer 2% packet loss per hour. It's $150,000 or euros lost because of 2% of packet loss per hour or something similar. We are moving towards business observability, where management and IT find common terms. So here we have a source, a graph who would show us that around 40% of the companies are still in the monitoring area, with some people really try to figure out what observability is about, and 50% already think they are mature in this process, and about 11% on the way to the level 4. So our contribution from the NEOC side of things is we start at the UC layer 1. We create a copy of the Ethernet traffic, aggregated from the various segments, and forward it to our security monitoring appliance. This appliance has a rule set behind and processes the traffic against this rule set, which can be updated by third-party threat intelligence with the help of AI. And whenever there is a violation, we would write a log into your SIEM or into your NDR solution and provide you with a conditional PCAP file for court-proof evidence of the event who triggered that log. And with that, I would give back to Nadim for trend number 3.
Great, Matthias. Yeah, so per your point on observability chart, right? So it's interesting, couple of years back, actually not couple of years, but 5 years back, I would go to different trade shows and I will ask people, hey, started using the word observability, and people didn't know what is observability, what's the difference between monitoring, visibility, and observability. Seems like now, per your chart, that more and more people are becoming familiar with observability, not only familiar, while you see the bottom kind of 40% still experimenting, still figuring it out. There is a big chunk of the people who have figured it out and kind of now in the adoption phase and know what they need. They're just more out there shopping for the tools and all that stuff. And then about 10% who think they have they are really ahead of the curve and they are really using it and they consider themselves now expert in it. But so you can see kind of 10% on one side, 90% on the other side. And that's why in the coming years, you're going to see a lot more adoption of observability tools, which uses visibility and monitoring, as you mentioned in the packet all case underneath. And, generally people correlate observability with only application side, but, there is security observability, there is application observability, both angles, right? So a debate for maybe some other webinar or topic, but very interesting thing to see. So with that, let's dive into number 3 for 2026, which is unified IT and OT observability and security. And this is huge, guys, right? So this is, I think, perhaps the highlight of 2026, right? So we, for the years we have seen OT being a silo, remote plant offices, whether it's, the shoemaking company or it's all the, popcorns or things we eat, or it's the automobile manufacturers, or it's the factories, the cement factories and construction and this and that, right? No matter what it is, it's a plant, and it's even could be oil rig. It's far deep into the ocean. It's kind of disconnected, right? And the people and crew who lives here has a separate kind of life. You're dealing with new SCADA systems. You're dealing with, legacy. You're dealing with PLCs and, still Cat 5 and Cat 6K cables and 1 gig speed. Well, a lot of that is changing now, right? So the IT has been way ahead. We have gone through data center transformation, virtualization, hybrid cloud, and all that stuff. So that trend is now catching up on the IT side, the OT side, and the OT has to follow. So you see this huge convergence because people are realizing that, hey, Now OT becoming that big kind of silo and island in itself is an easier attack surface. It's an easy target for the attackers, and most of that happens to be, a critical infrastructure piece of any nation, right? So whether it's the nuclear plants or it's the oil and gas pipelines, oil rigs, or whatever that is, even the financial, institutes are now kind of considered part of the critical infrastructure. So you have to make sure that you prevent it from cyber attacks. You have to make sure that you can remotely monitor as a single pane of glass what is happening there, get all the telemetry data out of the OT sites. So that is driving this trend. So that is also driving the, as I said, the role at the C level. So the CISOs are now expected to have this basically integral role of under their managing both OT and IT side, but also at the NOC and SOC level, right? But also the underneath infrastructures are adopting similar technologies and trends. So on the OT side, you see, for example, Ethernet as a technology being proliferated into the environments, and that's because that's what's standardized on the data center or IT side. You see that OT security responsibilities are being moved into the SOC, and so you can from your single pane of glass perspective can manage similar best practices and security posture on both sides. So the key trend here is that you're going to see this IT and OT sides no longer as a separate islands and domains, right? Observability and protection must span both as cohesive real-time manner. So it's going to create obviously huge opportunities for everybody as well. I think a lot of new jobs as well, a lot of tools and trends and spending coming up. Here you can see that the IT and OT side is going to have a common kind of. We are obviously network guys here, so we can network visibility closer to our heart. So we always try to bring networking angle to it. So you're going to see the network infrastructure. You're going to see, for example, in our case, the tapping and brokering and those kind of telemetry tools that basically I'm going to talk about in the next slide being adopted on both sides. This is just an interesting trend how the the uh, the maturity trend has been looking on the OT maturity level. So there's level 0, 1, and 2, 3, and 4, right? So you can see over the years, I didn't have the latest data because always the time it takes to put the reports down, it's a couple of years behind. But the idea here is to show you a trend that how basically how people are basically moving around this adoption on the maturity trend. For example, do you have a predictive behaviors established? Are you using certain kind of algorithms there? Do you have IDM access profiles enabled? Like IT, you have on the IT side, do you have on the OT side as well? Do you have visibility and segmentation? And Matthias is going to talk about more about segmentation and self-contained because OT resiliency becoming a priority over other things. So he's going to dive more into this topic, but this is where you see different things in the terms of readiness and adoption of the OT side catching up with the IT side. So what is our contribution from NEOC side? How we are enabling this transformation? Obviously, we are not into PLC business. What we can do is we build this, hardened taps for OT environments that are basically copper and hybrid taps that basically have built-in data diode functionality as well to block the reverse path into OT environment. So for the air gap, simulated air gap, but also basically you permanently deploy these in the OT, and obviously IT side, we already have tons of taps and modular, portable, etc. And now you start seeing all the packets out into central, NOC or SOC level. So you basically whatever your tool rail you will using on the IT side, you can leverage that and expand that on the OT side observability. That is how we are and can enable this unified observability and security because both teams, the observability and security teams, the network and security teams, both can leverage then their telemetry and data in real time without interruption, and unlike span risk that basically increase your attack surface. Here is an example, if you like, how would you then insert a packet brokering layer in the middle? with our packet line type of, or even packet wolf and other packet brokers we have, to basically create a 2-tier model or 3-tier model where you can scale this to many sites, or large plants. And if you have many tap and span ports to aggregate, and on the tool side, then you can obviously scale more by inserting a packet brokering layer. So unification of is already happening. I don't know if Matthias would like to talk, but we have already customers in transportation industry, in auto manufacturing industry, in bunch of industry verticals. Matthias was just telling me, just had a customer meeting yesterday where actually this exact use case was being discussed. Utilities is huge. We're going to talk about utilities in the regulation and compliance section, who are actually headed this way with a bunch of substation monitoring and stuff like that. With that, let me pass on with the next relevant trend, which I touched upon, back to Matthias.
Yeah, that is, thank you, Nadim. That was the visibility part. And now we take it a level further, because the OT is starting to think in resilience. We have wars upcoming or on the horizon, or potential. Hopefully we can avoid them. But irrespective, there are accidents happens, and attacks on critical infrastructure. And from a visibility perspective, that answers questions like, what devices do I have? Who is talking to whom over which protocol? Is something abnormal happening? And don't get me right, these are very important questions which a lot of verticals are struggling to answer. But the OT resilience is about outcomes. Can the systems continue operating safely under attack or failure? So that is tackling harder questions. Can incidents be contained without shutting down production? Can we recover quickly without manual heroics? Can we degrade gracefully, not catastrophically? So let's dive in, because organizations are moving beyond traditional asset management to improve the operational uptime towards 100%. And this, of course, requires a fail-safe architecture and resilient system design. And before we come to that, I think we should look a little bit into the different objectives between IT and OT. In OT, everything centers on controlling physical processes. Downtime is not an option. At the same time, legacy devices, sometimes 10 years or even older, must be maintained and protected. How would you going to do that? Air-gapped networks are not a new concept, but what we see is that alongside cloud adoption in the IT, they are experiencing a renaissance. Another factor to consider is the operational environment itself. Conditions can be extremely challenging, where dust and grease are often the least of the concerns. The key question becomes, how do we achieve IT-OT convergence while still guaranteeing uninterrupted production, even when connectivity to the outside world is lost? Let's think of an internet or a cloud outage. And in my view, one of the most effective approach to separate the converged IT-OT into 3 distinct planes would be that the production cells itself are completely isolated, they are segmented, they are fully local with deterministic relationships. That means if tool A is, or machine A is doing this thing, machine B comes in, irrespective, and there is no dependency outside to anything outside of this production cell. Then we would come to the operations plane, where, let me check, where we still have our databases. In case when anything goes wrong, you have your databases set up, you have your local human-machine interfaces where you can control the systems, not from your PC to the cloud and then back on site, which sometimes might be happening. And very important, you would also have your local authentication fallback. In case you have a third-party identity provider and there is an outage, you should still follow the zero trust objective and be able to authorize any machine identity or human identity. And finally, we reach the enterprise plane where the internet and cloud connectivity comes into the play. There you would have your analytics and reporting and handle things like remote access. So we also have a graph about the OT downtime impact. Nadim, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, per Matthias' point, the resilience is taking a priority over. I mean, visibility is now, per my previous section on the trend, and anybody, I think, it's a no-brainer. Basically, everybody knows. All the CISOs, CIOs know they gotta have visibility. Not only visibility, they gotta have unified visibility and observability, right, and security across the environment. So end to end. And this is where a new term, digital experience monitoring, is evolving. I mean, if you are a network architect or network engineer, as you know, or security engineer or security architect, you know that your job profile has expanded. You're not managing a box. You're not managing, silo and island anymore. You're managing end-to-end environment from user to the application, whatever falls in the middle, or from a workload all the way to the other side. So whether it's the cloud portion, it's your private data center, it is a remote site, it is. So that is where the term digital experience monitoring, because it's about the user experience, is about production, it's about real things that the C levels care about, and in a highly competitive environment in the world that we are living in now. So here basically, in that sense, the OT resiliency is uptime and production is the prime objective. And to enable that, you see basically what were some of the factors that caused outages over the years, over kind of 3 years up to 2024. The trend is going to pretty much be same. If you were able to get 2025 trend, it's not going to drastically change. So for example, you can see here that operational outages basically were the biggest reason for revenue loss. And that's also not just revenue loss. It's usually customer churn. It's usually reputation. It could be legal cost associated, and a lot of things, right? So in that sense, you see physical safety was a factor, for example.
Now we have lost Nadim. So I move on to the contribution of Neox Networks again.
Okay, so I think my
You're back.
connection got lost in a second. So can you hear me again?
Yeah, yes, we hear you.
What I was explaining, that chart is basically that explains the downtime caused by, you can see in a good 50%, 40% of the cases, the OT environment has suffered some sort of downtime. And that is why resiliency is becoming a top priority for the C levels, right? It's basically just validating the point that we were talking about. Back to you, Matthias.
Thank you. So our contribution from the Neox networks is the packet RU. It's an unidirectional data diode which secures especially OT environments. It was built for an energy provider who had a complete segmented air-gapped production cell, but still needed to provide backup, to bring the backup into the IT environment. And doing that manually was a little bit tedious. So we have developed this device which allows unidirectional data transfer over UDP, obviously, but still with our technology in a comprehensive way that you can rely that your backup is transmitted. And this device is now used to secure video surveillance. It is used to secure mirror ports, because the mirror ports can also be attacked, and to make normally air-gapped environments safe, but connect them to the next segment. With that, I would give back to you, Nadim.
Okay, so Actually, this is I think is another favorite, right? This is like everybody everybody's talking about zero trust, right? So um, if you don't know the term zero trust, basically, well, it's trusting nobody. So even the guys and you meet every day, it's about re-authenticating everybody all the time and basically assuming that, because if you look at certain statistics, the data shows that most of the attacks, a significant portion of the cyber attacks have come by stealing somebody's validated credentials or insider attacks, right? Where you trusted and assumed this person, but somebody misused their credentials, and then is pretending to be somebody they are not. So zero trust basically foolproofs your perimeters, your system on the IT and OT side. So you're gonna see zero trust led the IT side for years and has been adopted quite a bit on the, and now it's just catching up the OT side, right? So zero trust principles means continuous verification of users, devices, and access are becoming now standard practice across the unified, consolidated IT and OT environments. In the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see that happening. You're going to see companies offering solutions in that space. And as an IT practitioner, you should be looking forward to deploy that. Identity as a control plane. So you're going to see identity replaces the network location as the primary security control. Right, so it's going to extend it beyond workloads, APIs, machines, or OT assets. So again, you got to verify who is the guy, who is the person, who is the device trying to access. For example, one of our packet capture solution is heavily used. One of the use of our packet capture solution is, I learned, is people finding out a rogue IP address that shouldn't belong there. It could be a server, could be in your thousands of ports you're connecting to. There is one thing in there that you just don't recognize, that where the hell this comes from, right? So basically, that's where these tools are used to spot loopholes, to make sure that right credentials, right people come in. So zero trust mechanism and repeating and continuous monitoring is a key component of zero trust. Continuous instrumentation monitoring, and I'm going to relate that in a minute. So risk-based access to scenes are increasingly dynamic and context aware, adjusting in real time based on behaviors, device posture, and operational risks. So contextual information tied to, for example, I'll give an example. You see somebody downloading an FTP file at 2 a.m. from a region that, who is doing it right now, doesn't make sense. So unusual hours, downloading a large file from your database, as Matthias said, about your OT sensors or whatever that is unusual behavioral analytics that's going to trigger, obviously. So it's the same guy verified, but behavior is unusual, so that's contextual information. So key trend is that identity and access controls are now primary controls, not optional add-ons, for completely secure environments, whether it's IT or OT side. So never trust anybody, right? Always verify, authenticate before you give access to your visibility and control based domain, right? Are the key things. And this shows you how zero trust has been being adopted over the last few years, basically, um, across different. So you see, for example, application side, so actually you don't see anything that is 100% zero trust. You see kind of half and half picture here. So still a journey on the way. You see data side, you see the infrastructure, whether that's the IT infrastructure, and I think there is very little OT infrastructure in there, and it's gonna now increase. You see endpoint security, and you see identity verification, IDM system. So it gives you an idea that still we are halfway there in terms of zero trust implementation, and there is a lot more that needs to be done. Um, and this just shows, again, our animation isn't visible here, but we have, for example, a bypass switch and tap that deployed usually on the data center edge, and can be deployed on any network edge, and basically enables the inline security device, what I call service chaining. So although we are not in the zero trust game directly ourselves, we don't do anything, we don't do identity management, but Neox enables those type of tools, because here is how we see it. If you have tools that verify identity make sure the wrong person doesn't get in, doing all the checks, intrusion detection, whatever. But if that tool itself comes down, then you have a loophole, you have a window open for somebody to get in, right? So we make sure that tool stays up and does not come down. And that's where this service chaining. So we are basically making sure we switch over. We have this active standby, all these kind of mechanisms, a detail for some other webinar. But that is the game. We are an enabler of zero trust. We are not in the zero trust game ourselves. That is our contribution to this trend. And with that, I'm going to hand off back to Matthias for the next trend.
Okay. And now we come to the most exciting subject for a lot of people. It's painful. For some, it's very helpful, but for the majority, it's absolutely necessary. It's compliance, regulations, and governance. Because it's tedious to, or such a burden to start the required work like inventory, documentation, evidence collection, just to name the most obvious. Shortly before the next audit, organizations are beginning to operationalize compliance directly within their tooling. That means the tools have to follow the processes, right? But they also shall support you already with the providing you the evidence that you follow compliance. So we're talking about a digitalization trends. If you need to maintain an up-to-date asset inventory and continuously verify who is communicating with whom anyway, you could also provide it in real time to your regulatory department. The major difference, at least I can talk now for the European Union, we have strong regulations for the financial industry with DORA. We have NIS2 for all critical environments. Those two overlap for the financials. We have the Cyber Resilience Act, where every vendor falls into it, all the software vendors. And we have the EU AI Act, which even the richest men in the world have already become known to it. All these are laws in the European Union. And any managing director of a critical infrastructure or an organization who falls under these laws is personally liable. If you do an environmental, social, or governance misstatement, if you neglect your cyber resilience, if you misuse AI the wrong way, you can go to jail or pay some real money. So the major difference is it is a serious law now. And when you see that from a global perspective, I think it's fair to say that the European Union is the world's most regulated area, while the US relies on standards like NIST, Nadim, right? But it's also aggressively enforcing that they are there. I believe in the
Yeah, I mean, in US also, it's catching up. I mean, this so there are a lot of new executive orders that mandate a lot of recommend a lot of things, and then there is also new regulations coming. For example, I was talking to a utility company on the East Coast in a trade show. We had a very good 1 hour long conversation, and the person who was a network architect told me that several new compliance regulations are coming this year that require now utility substations to be monitored, tapped. You're going to have the telemetry data. You're going to have the capture solutions and stuff like that. So I agree with you. This is US is definitely behind EU, but it's coming up.
The Middle East, Africa, and APJ region, they have hybrid models. We are not so deep in there yet, but we see also areas where there are strict rules for making critical infrastructure safe. That is a common trend across the globe in any case. So that would be one for you, this statistics, Nadim.
Yeah, so it's basically just showing, again, some interesting trends like, how many people basically are generally educated about, generally at, as I said, at the functional level, we care less what the CI or CISOs is sleepless about, because as you said, the organizations can be fined, they can be, but it's usually the top, the strategic tier that thinking about these things, compliance and all that. And sometimes it feels like a hassle down there that we have to, let's say, acquire a packet capture appliance, deploy it, wire it up, and then keep packet data for certain number of weeks and all that, until we have a bad day and we really realize that actually why it is important. Because then you have to, suddenly a forensic experts or law enforcement steps in. Let's say you're a bank and there is a major, major cyber attack that happens. People's credit card information, a lot of financial information gets stolen. Obviously there are legal repercussions, there is customer churn, there is reputation loss of revenue, all that stuff. And investigation agency is going to step in and going to ask, hey, where is your data, where is your packet data when it comes to network? And then that's not the time to realize it. So but it's important to understand that, to tie what your leadership is facing, and as network or security architects, that you're thinking about those things.
So network analysis would also be a subject for a complete webinar. I just want to say, with this technology, we would provide court relevant evidence. And with that, 46 minutes, Nadim, we come to our last trend theme. Over to you.
Yeah, and hopefully this will be actually the most what's in it for me type of thing, for everybody. So I think it's not going to be boring, at least. So the cybersecurity skills, hey, all of us want to grow in our careers and we want to be successful. While we are doing all these things, all these other 6 trends, and enabling our organizations, our leadership to be successful, and we want to make sure that we are also ready. And it's kind of yin and yang. So we can't be successful, it's not just about tools, it's still a lot about humans. Yeah, I know we are nervous from AI that it's going to take our jobs, but still a lot. I think that you got to take the role where you become a great AI prompter, and you AI is like a horse and you ride it and not let it ride you, right? So basically, that's the word we are leading to. And in terms of skills, it's very important that everybody, at Neox, our CEO Temur, always says, everybody in Neox says, and basically everybody contributes to the innovation and to contribute to the revenue growth and all. Similarly, in an IT organization, I think we are heading to a time where everybody is going to be in the cybersecurity and visibility space. No matter what your role and job is, you got to have certain skills acquired, that you're at least educated about what vulnerabilities you or risks you could contribute to, what loopholes you need to spot. For example, we see the network packet brokers are usually deployed by the network engineers, but increasingly being funded by the security team. So there is NetSecOps collaboration within IT organizations, that because both are beneficiaries of the network visibility, because now they can certainly see, wow, what is happening at the network level. So you have more actionable insights that both are benefiting from. So in terms of cybersecurity skills, you see on the right side, there are certain technical skills industry expects people to acquire, be more aware. There is human in the loop security. Without that, security is not complete. And then you have also certain soft skills that are expected out of you, but more on the technical skills here. The cybersecurity skill development, you have to invest in it, learn about it. This webinar is part of that, right? And so if I go to the next slide, it's also going to benefit you, as because there's a lot of jobs that are still coming up. I think it's a hot area where I think you basically, by doing that, you invest in your own career growth as well. So
Nadim, can I quickly chime in here? I mean, the
absolutely.
situation might be a little bit different in your area. What we see here in Europe, we still have a lack of skilled people, especially of those skills you just mentioned.
Yeah,
Also,
and that just shows what you just said. You see that about 69 to 70% security teams are still understaffed, right? And you still have lack of skills. So it's you have several open cybersecurity field jobs out there. And there's all of, especially the AI nexus is going to drive. If you are AI educated, AI aware, visibility expert, forensics expert, your AI educated, AI aware cybersecurity professional. I think there's going to be always a demand for you, right? So these statistics just prove what you just said, Matthias. Okay, that kind of, we are reaching the top of our hour. So at the very end, summarizing, and Matthias, feel free to chime in here. The summary is to take away is that IT and OT observability is becoming essential. It's under kind of strict control and ROI control, but still, I mean, the good news is that people now have dedicated budgets, they're giving it. It's not like considered a cost center or yeah, why we should have it kind of thing, but it's kind of essential. Like, what is the strategic and functional importance of it, and now it's a matter of doing it right. IT and OT security is becoming identity driven, as we talked about zero trust and other things. It's more automated, AI being a companion of you, although you can, all the time debate whether it's AI means more automation or it means more predictive or prescriptive. It's a journey that's going to continue, but AI is going to be there, and it's more efficiency focused. OT security is now prioritized more, and in terms of resilience, so and uptime of the production environments. So you got to have foolproof environment. Hence, we mentioned things like air gaps, and just don't let it happen. Don't take 1% chance, right? And that is generally the mindset. Threats are more automated, right? Again, AI, while budgets remain constrained. So the challenge for the IT leadership is basically how to do more with less. And that is another reason why they want AI, because with AI, you can do more with less. And then, you have operational, operations, SecOps or NetOps or Cloud Ops, emphasize consolidation outcomes and sustainable staffing, as we just touched upon the skills and staffing challenges in the last slide. So the winners in 2026 won't be the organizations that spend the most necessarily, but they will be the ones that spend deliberately, automate intelligently, and design for resilience. That is basically the takeaway we are taking from today's conversation. Matthias, you would like to add anything?
Nadim, perfect. I would just say, for me, identity-driven authentication, or the zero trust theme, that is one of the strongest, next to the resilience of the OT. But everybody has his personal favors. I would like to hand over to you for the winning the lottery. If we have some questions, we still have 8 minutes to go. So
yeah, so we have the chat window here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. We're gonna give it about a couple of minutes before we wrap up. Okay. I don't know if people can see the questions, but somehow I see one here. So how real is AI for IT and OT space? Is it more of a hype or a reality? Right. So Matthias, what do you think?
So it is everywhere now. It is everywhere. From every vendor, it's expected to have AI included, or at least prepared, in the observability space, in the security space. Everyone is talking about, but I personally see it we are at the level 2 and level 3. It's supported. It's not yet driven. This will come maybe in 27, 28, 29, 2030 even, that we hand over the responsibility to AI itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question is, what type of industries you see deploying network visibility in the OT environments? I can start and Matthias can chime in. So we see actually in all kind of industries, dominantly NEOC sees our solutions, at least from our perspective, being deployed across manufacturing, for example, is huge. All kind of manufacturing you can think of. You can see then transportation is huge. Critical infrastructure is becoming dominant everywhere, whatever you consider as part of critical infrastructure. Matthias, what else you see across Europe?
Energy, but I must admit I haven't understood the question. Can you rephrase it again,
So the
please?
question is basically, we talked about all these OT environments, right?
Yeah.
So they are basically asking that what kind of industries in OT specifically we see, we see the need for network visibility, monitoring space, observability, whatever you want to call it. What industries now, if you break it down into different, like for example, I would say auto manufacturers, like, or
most important, also for me, but that is also maybe my favor, is energy. All the energy, because that is the most critical infrastructure, as we have personally seen in Berlin, where there was an attack on the infrastructure and 45,000 households were directly at Christmas without electricity. I mean, when you think about the Ukraine, that is probably nothing, and I apologize, don't get me wrong, but we don't need to have that either, so that is the most important thing for me, the energy sector, but also transportation, just like railway or air industry. That are the things which are critical.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here quickly. The last we can take is where do you see the packet capture mostly being used for cyber security? I would say that mostly in the highly regulated industries like financial services, or government sector, and things like that, where obviously wherever you have a need for incident response and forensics and containing a cyber attack, where you need to go back to the packet data and find out why it happened, where it happened, who did it, when it happened, all there is nothing, and court evidence to prosecute, to defend, would be all those kind of industries. Matthias, you have anything to add?
This is, as I used to say, everywhere where the network and the security matters. Because it is not an active protection, but in retrospective, you can find out everything what you want. And if you use that for troubleshooting, or if you use that to verify if you have cleaned out, for example, a breach completely, or if you want to verify exactly who was talking to whom in the past, there is nothing. The truth is in the packet. Too. Let's close it out with that.
Great. So somebody's saying here, a LinkedIn user, that was a very good presentation. Appreciate that. That's exactly what was the objective. So if you like it, we really value that. And there's going to be a recording available as well pretty soon. We'll clean it up and provide a recording. So just to show you, if you're interested in Neox products, we have a pretty rich portfolio for IT and OT observability and security. So feel free to reach out to our website later on, which you can access it here if you want to scan the QR code now, or there is a URL, neoxnetworks.com. So find out more about our solutions. Feel free to reach out to me or Matthias or anybody for that matter. And I'll be happy to help you in any case. So we're going to take the list of the attendees. We are going to have statistics that the attendance duration. So whoever the people who attended, who are still completed the webinar, we're going to pick a winner out of that. And we're going to do a lottery, whatever. And we'll reach out through your email or contact you provided later on after the webinar, hopefully within this week. So that is the intent here. Stay tuned for our upcoming webinars. We're going to announce soon, and we're going to continue this series throughout 2026, hopefully to keep you sharp and relevant to your industries. Thank you very much for your listening.
And we thank you very much for attending. Have a great